All right, folks, let's get started. Once again, my name is Bobby Farmer. I am a member of the Foodwell Alliance team. I really appreciate everybody tuning in today. Go ahead and if you do not have my email address, feel free to make a note of it. It's bobby@foodwellalliance.org. You're more than welcome to reach out to me with any community garden grant questions that you might have as we kind of move through the application timeline. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. I am part of our team here at Foodwell Alliance. For those of you that are not familiar with us or maybe tuning in to learn a little bit more about our offerings and what we do here in Metro Atlanta, we do strive to be a collaborative network of local leaders that are working to build thriving community gardens and farms across the Metro Atlanta area. And our mission here is to provide the resources and support to local growers to connect and build healthier communities. I really think of this as our role being a support organization so that community gardeners and local farmers can do what they do best. So today we're going to talk about one of those resources with our community garden grant. But first, since we're here in good company, I do like to always just provide some nice little fall growing scenes. A lot of us woke up to some quite brisk temperatures. If you do have some nice greens going in your garden, I'm sure everything will be fine. Make sure to give them a good water today. Once that sunlight hits everything, they're going to be making it through and probably enjoying some of these crisp temperatures. Because I do see we're going to be back up in the mid 70s here as we move on into the weekend. Maybe you're working through some of your fall garden, planting, cultivating, nurturing. You might even be still identifying some small cabbage worms, like I've seen in some gardens recently. Some people really think about the growing season here in Atlanta being tomatoes, cucumbers, and okra, but we're blessed to be able to grow all year round. So I hope folks are out and enjoying their fall gardens, getting those tasty greens and enjoying the garden throughout all the seasons. So a little bit just more about Foodwell Alliance. We work to support community gardens and urban farms here across the 5-county Metro Atlanta area. So we work in Fulton, DeKalb, Cobb, Clayton, and Gwinnett counties. We provide a variety of direct resources, both that are targeted at community gardens as well as urban farms. We also do a neat program that's really important that we've learned a lot through. We call our city ag planning process. We've worked with the cities of East Point, as well as community members in East Point, Alpharetta, Jonesboro. We're currently looking for a next city. So please head over to our foodwellalliance.org website if you're interested in our work, helping cities and community members understand how to prioritize and plan for urban agriculture in their communities. We also offer some great events throughout the year. Many of you might have heard of or hopefully attended our annual Soil Festival event that's all about healthy soil for healthy local communities. So I really encourage, if you have not, please head over to our website, foodwellalliance.org, to sign up for our newsletters and go ahead and get connected with us so that you can kind of stay in touch and hear about the things that we do throughout the year. But today we're here to talk about community gardens. Community gardens, of course, are our treasured spaces across the Metro Atlanta area that come in a lot of different neat shapes and sizes and formats and organization structures. We have worked definitely since 2015 in partnership with a variety of different organizations and leaders to figure out how to best serve community gardens, how to keep these treasured spaces thriving. Like I said, kind of helping these growers do what they do best, which is growing food with others and for others right here in the communities where we live across Metro Atlanta. So, these are some of the reasons we look at community gardens as being just super important to the landscape of our metro area where we live. Community gardens, of course, connect us to each other, but these are also spaces that connect us to knowledge, to skills. Of course, also, there is the food, the food itself. Community gardens across Metro Atlanta grow and produce a lot of great healthy food that's consumed by the household community garden members. It's also shared with others. A community garden is a great place to support healthy lifestyles around both physical activity, mental wellness, connections with others. And of course, community gardens, often all throughout the year are beautifying our urban spaces. They're also healing our urban ecosystems by providing such important benefits as habitat and food for pollinators, capturing carbon, capturing runoff and water through healthy soil. And then, of course, something that's important to our Foodwell Alliance vision of a thriving, equitable local food system across Metro Atlanta. Community gardens are places where people grow a lot of awesome, healthy local food. These are some of the other ways that Foodwell Alliance supports community gardens. So I know today everybody is tuned in and interested in the community garden grant. But just as a heads up, we do offer ongoing volunteer support for community gardens. That's throughout the entire year. We bring the tools, we bring the people to help community gardens accomplish, garden improvement tasks or to help gardens stay on track with their work. We also have some ongoing training and workshop opportunities throughout the year. Hopefully you've been able to attend or tune into our Plant, Eat, Repeat series. We also offer some community garden leadership development training during the year through our orchard initiative and our annual fruit tree sale. We're out planting orchards and planting fruit trees and bushes at community gardens. We do offer our compost delivery resource. That's going to be coming later in the winter, spring of 2024. In which community gardens can request up to 2 cubic yards of high quality compost delivered right to their community gardens. We do provide some tool and mechanical assistance, as well as kind of, what we kind of just call our community garden planning and troubleshooting, just kind of some consulting in the sense of being, a listening ear, coming out to spaces to meet with community garden leaders, hear about issues they're having, or bounce ideas off of each other. So we're here for all of this, and are really excited when community gardens participate and tap into the variety of resources that are here. So let's hone in a little bit on this community garden grant opportunity. I also just want to mention, as I'm kind of going through this information, feel free to use the webinar chat and Q&A functionality to type in any questions that you might have. You can type those in as they come to you, and we'll definitely have some time for some Q&A a little bit later. So really, this opportunity is for me to share some information, but also, for you to ask any questions you might have in real time as well. So let's talk about the Community Garden Grant. This is an opportunity that has been in existence since 2015. To date, we've reached 187 community gardens with this small, flexible, accessible funding opportunity. And that represents a little over $570,000 directly deployed to these community garden spaces. I think what we're really excited about, and something that we really look forward to each year with this opportunity, is the opportunity to support new community gardens. So not necessarily brand new startup community gardens alone, but community gardens that have not applied for or received the community garden grant funding opportunity in the past. But we simultaneously also do acknowledge and appreciate the opportunity to support some of the community gardens that come back and reapply. We have been able to provide multiple years of community garden grant funding to some gardens as a way to offer a little bit of ongoing assistance. So previous community garden grant applicants and recipients are able to reapply and receive funding again. So once again, we're excited about this time of year to hopefully learn about some new community gardens, either that are coming on the scene or that have not tapped into this funding opportunity before. We, of course, also do enjoy hearing again from community gardens that are looking to utilize this funding opportunity for another year to address some of their needs and challenges. And when we think about this community garden grant opportunity, what we have seen over the years is this opportunity is a chance for community gardens to maintain, improve, and in some cases expand their community garden spaces. So as I mentioned, these treasured spaces take they take sweat equity, they take coordinating power, they require super organizers. But they also require some investment, resources that are able to meet the garden where they are and help them address some of those ongoing needs throughout their life. So I want to just kind of point out that whether it's maintaining or improving their community garden spaces, or in some cases expanding to meet new membership or new demands, we're excited about how this opportunity meets community gardens. Okay, so today I want to highlight and kind of present two opportunities. This is a two-in-one garden grant opportunity. Today we are talking about the 2024 Community Garden Grant, which includes two categories of garden grants. So I want to kind of mention this right here from the start. Within this one application, your community garden can apply to be considered under both of these categories. So we have our Garden Improvement Grant. That's a $1,500 grant. For folks that are most familiar with this grant opportunity in the past, this is the one you're going to be most familiar with. This is the community garden grant that reaches the largest number of community garden recipients each year. And this is intended to be used for things like small infrastructure improvements, material and supply needs. And what we rolled out last year was our larger Garden Forward Grant, our $10,000 grant opportunity, in which a community garden that's ready to take on a bigger project can apply for and offer up their intent to utilize a larger funding amount to address kind of a bigger project or address a bigger challenge or need at their garden that's really going to help that garden move forward in their ability to grow food in and with community. So I want to mention that a garden can apply to be considered under both of these categories, or a garden can apply for just one of those opportunities. It's really up to the garden. It's really up to what you're facing, what your challenges and needs are in the garden. And what I'll kind of mention again is that you don't have to apply for both categories, but if you are considering applying for the larger $10,000 Garden Forward Grant, I would really recommend to go ahead and fill out the section also for the smaller Garden Improvement Grant. That's just kind of a way to cover both of your bases. If you don't get the larger $10,000 Garden Forward Grant, you can still be in the running for the smaller $1,500 garden improvement grant. So within the one application, you're going to be able to complete sections of that application that correspond to both of these categories. And so, it's kind of, we leave it up to the gardens to put forth kind of how they want to participate with this opportunity. We did have a little over 90 applications last year for this, for the community garden grant, which is about average for what we've seen over the last few years. Within that, within the applications we received, a little over 70 of those applications applied to be considered under both the Garden Improvement Grant and the Garden Forward Grant categories. So that's just gives you a little kind of insight or information about kind of how gardens are kind of participating and applying for. Just wanted to mention one thing. We did have a question a question brought forward here in the Q&A section, asking if somebody could turn on the chat. It's disabled. So I believe that is now enabled for anybody that wants to use the chat function. And then the Q&A is also available as well. Okay, so let's get into some details. Who can apply for this opportunity? So the Community Garden Grant from Foodwell Alliance is available for existing community gardens that are located in Clayton, Cobb, DeKalb, Fulton, or Gwinnett counties. Those 5 counties represent the Metro Atlanta area that Foodwell Alliance is currently serving. So community gardens that are eligible do need to be located in one of those 5 counties. We look to the American Community Gardening Association for some of the kind of criteria around what makes a community garden a community garden. We do keep that kind of criteria very open and thus allowing community gardens in a lot of different organizational forms to apply and access this funding opportunity. But we do consider a community garden having at least 5 regular, consistent individual households that are involved in the operation and management of a community garden space, of a garden space. So we do have that 5 household criteria. And, when we think about the different types of community gardens that exist out there, we are open to and have funded community gardens in a lot of different formats. So you can think about a community garden as just being operated by, a group of dedicated neighbors and community members. Doesn't have to be a lot of formality around it with some of those community gardens. But what you do also see is there are some community gardens that are, essentially registered as their own their own entity, their own, that might be a tax-exempt nonprofit organization. And then you do see community gardens that are directly affiliated with or operated by a public agency or institution. You could think about some of those gardens out there across the metro area that are directly coordinated by an extension office, by a county parks and recreation department, or something like that. So we are open to, all the different forms that a community garden takes. Now, one thing you will see is that I did mention existing community gardens. So in order to receive a community garden grant, a community garden, of course, does need to exist in some format. So these are kind of some checklists to make sure that you are an existing community garden. Have you built or installed on-site community garden infrastructure at a location where you have, a current documented agreement to be operating the community garden at that space? And have you done the work to, engage and recruit and get the commitments of at least those 5 individual household members, for that garden. So I think, certainly something that people can think about as they're, learning about this opportunity, considering applying. Certainly a question we like gardens to ask themselves is, is my garden ready to apply? Is this, is a grant opportunity what we need and what we're able to handle at this time, kind of in the path or evolution of your community garden. And so, I think there's some just kind of simple basic questions that a garden can be asking itself. One, are you ready to accept and use, funds? We're going to talk a little bit more about how different types of gardens can, specifically accept the funds in the grant itself. But definitely a question to ask. Are you ready to manage and implement a grant? So, hopefully you've taken a look at the application, you're ready to apply. If you are accepted, are you ready to, to make that grant happen? Are you able to ready and organized to take on, the actual implementation of the grant? And then, of course, that the most important question, gardens are hopefully not just applying to apply. They're not just seeing, oh, some money is out there and available. But I hope that gardens are asking themselves, yeah, what do we really need right now in the garden? And how can a grant help us address that? So let's get into a little bit about kind of these two opportunities, the 2 categories that a garden can apply to within this application. We do have our $1,500 garden improvement grant, as I mentioned. This garden grant over the years has been used by gardens to, make some garden infrastructure upgrades and improvements. Some of the top categories for the use of the $1,500 garden improvement grant over the years have been to replace or add additional raised beds. So, of course, that includes the lumber, maybe a bit of hardware, certainly some, planting medium, some soil, compost to fill those raised beds. On top of that, tool sheds have been very popular. Garden signage has been very popular. We've seen gardens take on small fencing projects. Irrigation projects are a common one as well. These are just some of the examples and ways that gardens have used that. But also, tools. Tools are very popular use. There are also a lot of requests that include, some kind of essential community gardening supplies and materials. And those are certainly ways that gardens can utilize the $1,500 grant. We are targeting to award about 60 of the garden improvement grants. That's about what we have awarded on average, looking back over the last 3 to 4 years. So once again, for example, the average over the last 3 years has been just over 90 applications received. So that just gives you a little bit of a sense of how many we are able to accept in a given year. And then let's talk a little bit about our larger Garden Forward grant. This is the $10,000 grant opportunity. This is something new that we started last year. We were able to award 2 of the Garden Forward grants last year. That's what we're going to be able to award this year as well in 2024. Our kind of inaugural garden grant recipient, our Garden Forward grant recipients were the Austell Community Garden over in Cobb and the Jolly Avenue Community Garden over in Clarkston and DeKalb County. Both of these gardens offered up a kind of central project. And actually, in this case, both of these were around some kind of larger scale and much improved irrigation systems for the garden. So just wanted to kind of give little shout out and highlight of those from this past year. We're learning together with Austell, with Jolly Ave, and with Future Gardens about what it takes to manage and implement a little bit of a larger garden improvement project. So we're excited to learn a little bit more through the applications this year for this larger funding amount, as well as to how community gardens want to utilize it, and how they kind of present a project for this. I want to mention that for the Garden Forward grant, certainly a community garden can include in their request, in their use of the $10,000 grant, can include garden supplies, materials, and tools. But I think what's really important for the grant for this larger grant opportunity is that there is kind of a central project or a central kind of theme and focus for this larger grant opportunity. And so I guess what I mean by that, and what we're looking for in this larger kind of Garden Forward grant opportunity is $10,000. We don't want to necessarily see like just a super long list of just different supplies, different materials, different tools. We really want to see kind of a central project or theme around a request for this larger Garden Forward grant. So as an example, Austell and Jolly Ave both kind of made some good, compelling cases for how a big irrigation project at both of those gardens would really serve the community garden members and really improve the garden's ability to offer a really high quality place for folks to grow food together. So they were able to kind of build their application, write their application around this kind of central irrigation project as kind of their main focus. So that's kind of what we want to see from this Garden Forward category. Just some examples kind of over the years at some different sites and places around town. Different ways to do raised beds, different ways to do things like tool storage, like garden signage, the tools themselves, materials such as compost, additional compost. So just some visuals of some of the different ways that gardens have utilized the funds to make some improvements at their gardens and at their spaces. So I just want to revisit real quick the Community Garden Grants timeline. If you have not, please head over to foodwellalliance.org. You're going to be able to hit a drop down for resources for community gardens. It's going to take you to our garden grants page, where, if you haven't yet, a lot of great information about the timeline, certainly a lot of the information that we're covering here on the webinar today. That's also going to be, of course, where you get into the application itself through our online grant system. So we are here right now in our application window. Applications are due November 21st, so everybody can get those submitted before their Thanksgiving cooking commences, and then and not have to worry about it as we get into the holiday season. But what November 21st kicks off for us is our evaluation process. We do try to work through that in a very diligent and intentional way, such that we can, understand the scope of the applications that have been submitted, understand what each, who each community garden grant applicant is, how they're proposing the use of the funds. We try to stay on that process, work through, a pretty large volume of applications, so that once we get to January, we are able to go ahead and get decisions out to the applicants, by late January. And then the other thing I do want to point out, this goes a little bit back to, are you ready to take on and manage a garden grant process? Because yes, there is some reporting requirements related to the community garden grant. We have set up both the application as well as the reporting requirements so that they are not overly burdensome, that they are pretty straightforward. And, it's our intent that both the application as well as the kind of community garden project report that's completed by recipients are, straightforward and hopefully really help gardens think through their work, think through, how they utilize funds and how the funds fit in to improve their garden. But there is a small project report that would be completed later in 2024. So we kind of target that a late fall project report, so that garden recipients have implemented their projects and then are reporting back to us on how it went, what happened, what changes you had to make, and how that grant and the project is serving gardens. So for folks that received the 2023 community garden grant, they're actually working on their project reports right now as we speak. So that's just a little bit about the kind of timeline. How does My Garden apply? So all applications are accepted through our online grant system. Both categories of the grant, the $1,500 garden improvement grant and the $10,000 garden forward grant, are applied for through one application form. Within that application, there are distinct sections for both of those opportunities. So if you are going to apply for both of them, just make sure that you complete all the sections of each category of the grant. The grant system is, I like to say, pretty user-friendly. We've been utilizing this system for a number of years, have gotten a lot of good feedback that it is pretty intuitive and straightforward. If you do have any challenges at all related to the system, related to any of the technology, please reach out to me, and we can certainly work through that together. And applications are due in that online grant system by November 21st at the end of that day. We'll say 11:59 p.m. And to get to that system, head over to the Food Well Alliance website, to our Community Garden Grants page. That's where you're going to actually get to that link, essentially an Apply Now button to get started. This is kind of just a screenshot of what the login page to that online grant system looks like. And for a new user, you're going to hit that Create New Account button and get set up in the system, just entering some kind of identifying information. And we are, like I said, we have had some pretty good feedback about just getting into the system and utilizing it. If you are new to the system, one thing you are going to notice when you create a new account, it is going to ask for a tax ID. And the reason it asks for a tax ID number is because, we utilize this system, have utilized it over the years for a variety of different grant making processes. If your community garden does not have a tax ID, which many do not, that is not a problem. And in fact, what I encourage people, community gardens mostly do not have tax ID numbers. So you can just enter 7 zeros, just enter 0000000 for when it asks for your tax ID number. Once you're in, it's a series of kind of drop-down menus to complete the different parts of the community garden grant application. Certainly there for a section kind of just to identify your community garden, where it's located, describe it, what community it's in, who's involved. So So, as you work through the community garden grant application, I think you'll see that it's set up in a way to kind of just help youth kind of think through who you are as a community garden, how you want to apply and utilize these funds. So let's talk a little bit about kind of an administrative thing. So a question that you might need to ask yourself if you're applying for this community garden grant is who will actually receive the funds? Like I mentioned, some community gardens are directly operated by a nonprofit organization that will, receive the funds for the community garden grant if accepted. But if your community garden is just say, group of neighbors or community members, you might need to think through a little bit about how you would actually receive grant funds. We cannot make the grant check out to just an individual. We do have to make that out to a tax-exempt organization. So for community gardens that are, not directly operated by an organization, then you will need to identify a fiscal sponsor that would receive the funds on your behalf if your garden is accepted for the community garden grant. So we see a fiscal sponsor is a tax-exempt organization that will agree to accept, receive, and disperse the grant funds on your behalf. And not every community garden applicant necessarily needs a fiscal sponsor. But if you're, thinking down the line, if you were to get accepted for the grant, how am I actually going to, receive those funds? You might need to be thinking through a fiscal sponsor. We go ahead and ask that community gardens identify and kind of name that fiscal sponsor within the application. That way, it's just from the start, there's no questions about kind of what's going to happen if we do get accepted. So doing it on the front end to kind of avoid avoid that kind of question of, okay, we got the grant, now how do we actually get the funds? So you'll see there is a fiscal sponsor agreement form within the application if you need it. You would have your community garden and the fiscal sponsor organization that's going to accept and receive the funds sign and complete this brief agreement form, and you'll upload that back into the section of the application. If you have any questions around, do we need a fiscal sponsor, or, how do I find one? Feel free to reach out to me if you have any specific questions. Just as an example, community gardens have utilized other community-based organizations that either partner with the community garden to serve as a fiscal sponsor, or just another organization working closely in the community. This has also included churches or faith-based organizations where community gardens are hosted on the property of churches or congregations. This also has included fiscal sponsors have also included organizations like Park Pride, the Wild Center in Decatur, also extension offices, municipal entities like a county Parks and Rec, or some of those different entities have also served as fiscal sponsors over the years for recipients. So certainly let me know if you have any questions about the fiscal sponsor. So let's talk a little bit about kind of some application tips. What is Foodwell Alliance looking for? What makes a good community garden grant application? And I think overall, the application is an opportunity. This is the place for you to really describe and help kind of bring along a picture of who your community garden is, who is involved. Be clear and utilize the application as a place to help us to get to know your community garden. Who's involved, how is it interacting or supporting or what's its place in the community where y'all are located. Really use that application to kind of bring that to light. Also, as I've kind of mentioned a little bit over the presentation, the community garden grant is an opportunity for you, the community garden grant applicant, to identify and name those top needs and challenges at your community garden. So utilize the application to be clear on how you intend for the garden grant to help address those top needs and challenges. If on one hand, in the community garden grant application, you're describing a lack of high quality tools that are available for gardener use, but then the actual grant ask or request is not related to tools, but something kind of totally different, then that would kind of raise some questions like, okay, how is the community garden really describing and understanding like what its top challenges or obstacles are to being a thriving community garden. So just make sure there's that nice link between what obstacles are you facing, and how are you going to utilize a garden grant to help address those. Be realistic and clear in your request. That's just kind of, I think, keeping things simple, certainly, providing the details needed, but making sure that what you're describing in your request is realistic and clear and straightforward is important. I'll also mention, we have about 3 weeks to go on the application window, which is honestly plenty of time to get an application started, thoughtfully completed and submitted. But what I'll kind of mention is make sure you're giving yourself time to certainly understand how to get into the grant system and navigate around and complete the application. But make sure if you haven't yet, make that a to-do today to go ahead and get get some of your get some of your community garden members together to be talking about who's going to be submitting or establishing the community gardens kind of account or a profile in the grant system, and what's the process for completing and submitting the application. Also, within the application, there is a place to upload 3 community garden pictures. So I would just please ask, go ahead and make sure you have some good community garden pictures. And I'm not saying they need to be professional, super highest quality, but we want to be able to see a community garden. We're not always able to get out physically and see every garden applicant space. We certainly here at Food Well Alliance are out and see a lot of community gardens and are familiar with a lot of community garden spaces across Metro Atlanta. But we do like to have some of those pictures just uploaded in the application. And I love pictures of tomatoes. we are all fans of tomatoes here at Food Well Alliance, and all the veggies as well. But like, offer up some community garden pictures that really actually display and show your community garden. We don't need close-up pictures of harvested vegetables. That could be part of a picture, but we know what all the top veggies look like. So make sure to keep those pictures about the actual community garden space itself. So I do want to mention a little bit more about the evaluation process. We do utilize a external review committee. The review committee we solicit and essentially form from past community garden grant recipients. So in addition to, of course, embedding transparency in the process with, working with external review committee members, but not just external review committee members, but specifically community garden leaders who are familiar with this work and are familiar with what goes into community gardening itself. But additionally, it is a neat opportunity to have some kind of networking and sharing take place amongst community garden leaders. So we do solicit that from kind of our past community garden grant recipient base, and they are involved. They read the applications with us. They score the applications, and we have discussion about those applications all together. So we're going to kind of get into a little bit of Q&A. So feel free to go ahead and put some of those questions you might have in the Q&A box. But here's kind of your checklist. These are things to start on today if you have not already. Register your garden in the online grant system. Make sure to head over to the Foodwell Alliance website where you can go ahead and get into that online grant system. What I'll mention about the online grant system, you do not have to start and complete and submit the application in one sitting or one go. You can start your application, save your progress, log out, return to it later, so that you can see what you need. You can work on that application, outside of the system or on your own time to figure out, kind of what you need to put together, and then come back to it at any time, to submit it before the application deadline. Make sure that y'all are having those conversations amongst your fellow gardeners, your fellow community garden members. Make sure you're having that dialogue of, okay, this garden grant opportunity is available. How can we use it? What do we need to be addressing? What obstacles can we overcome with this small grant? What can we put forth in a proposal together? Make sure you're having those conversations, meeting with your community garden members to discuss those things. Of course, go ahead and decide if you're going to be applying for the Garden Improvement Grant, the $1,500 grant, the Garden Forward Grant, that's the $10,000 grant, or both. Once again, like I said, we're only able to award 2 of those Garden Forward grants. We're targeting 60 of the Garden Improvement grants. So just from the numbers game, if you're considering applying to the big one, I would also recommend going ahead and putting in for the small one. That once again just kind of gets you kind of in consideration under both categories. I mentioned a little bit about the fiscal sponsor earlier. If your community garden does need to identify an organization or entity that will actually receive the community garden grant check if you are approved for the grant, make sure you go ahead and identify who that's going to be. Go ahead and get them to sign that fiscal sponsor agreement form that you'll find within the grant system. Go ahead and get on that part of the process today, and certainly reach out if you do have any questions. And then, of course, November 21st at 11:59 p.m., that is our application deadline. So certainly plenty of time here over the next few weeks to get in and get submitted. Like I said, the application is pretty straightforward. Great opportunities within the application to elaborate on who your community garden is, who it serves, what you're trying to do with this community garden grant. But at the same time, you'll find the application is not overly extensive or overly burdensome. So yeah, once again, thank y'all so much for joining us. My name is Bobby Farmer, Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at foodwellalliance.org. Feel free to reach out to me with any follow-up questions you might have. And I am going to kind of highlight a couple questions that we did receive here. And so, yeah, I think I covered this, but going to mention again, we did have about 94 applications last year. And we're able to award about 60 of those or a little over 60 of those applicants did receive the grant. So that does give you an example of kind of the numbers and kind of what the chances are and what percentages. So I had a question here about student-run community gardens that are at universities. And I appreciate that question. This community garden grant opportunity is for community gardens specifically. And one group we do kind of leave out of that is school gardens are not eligible to apply. However, that is specifically referring to like K through 12 school gardens. K through 12 school gardens have a lot of dedicated resources and opportunities. So we do exclude school gardens from applying for the community garden grant. The one exception, though, is that we do accept applications from university community gardens, which are a little bit more in line with kind of what one might think about as a traditional community garden. So university student-run community gardens that are located at universities are eligible to apply for this grant. So I had a question here. So thanks again. Let me know if you do have any questions about the school gardens. We do have there are a lot of dedicated school garden opportunities out there. So we like to keep this one specifically for the community gardens. Okay, question here. If as an organization, you organize and support more than one garden, is it possible to apply for funding for both gardens with a single application? Or do you need to register each garden separately and submit separate applications for them? So that is a good question. We do have some organizations that do a lot of great work and are leaders in this community gardening work located here in Metro Atlanta that do operate or support multiple community gardens. In those cases, that organization would need to submit submit a specific distinct application for each community garden that they are applying for. So for example, if you work with an organization that coordinates 3 community gardens in a specific neighborhood or area, you would need to, essentially submit 3 applications if you wanted to, for each of those gardens to be potentially considered, for the funding opportunity. So, I highlight that because, in those cases, those would be each of those gardens that an organization kind of operates or stewards or helps support, each of those, say 3 community gardens being distinct community garden spaces, then they would, need to apply for, 3 different distinct applications. So a question here, does the grant support education, training, and consultation fee expenses? So great question. We typically have not seen this grant as something that supports programmatic offerings by a community garden. So definitely understand like the desire to have, offering either education or training or consultation to, members of a community garden. But we don't generally consider this to be an opportunity to kind of provide and support programmatic expenses. I guess the kind of exception or just something that we would certainly consider or work to understand with a garden applicant, if it is like a specific consultation fee or something directly related to like implementing, some other part of the grant proposal or grant request, then yeah, that certainly could be a part of it. But generally not for kind of like programmatic offerings to community garden members. So a question here, some examples of a successful application, what and or what was lacking for applications that did not get awarded. So I think, yeah, we definitely get some applications from some community gardens that are maybe not quite community gardens. So we do eliminate some applicants in the sense that they don't necessarily meet the eligibility requirements. Either those are sometimes, sometimes a garden that's operated just by a single individual that doesn't actually include community, that might be more of just kind of like a home garden or even just a garden project that's operated by a sole individual that doesn't necessarily consistently incorporate or engage others. So there's certainly some applications that get eliminated because they're just don't quite meet uh, those qualifications. We do occasionally get some community garden grant applications that are just super unclear about what the garden is, who it is, who's involved. So certainly successful applications will just be really clear in describing, who the garden is, kind of that, utilizing that application to really bring to life the kind of story and picture of what that community garden is and who's involved, how it operates, how it continues to do its work of growing food together. And certainly a successful application is going to be, very clear in how the garden intends to utilize the funds. So that, that's that being a very kind of clear part of the application. And also, a successful application is definitely going to be making that link between the top kind of obstacles, challenges, or needs, and how this grant is going to help them address those. And what I'll mention, not only helping them, how's the grant going to help those gardens address those needs, but then, yeah, what's that change, what's that intended kind of outcome that's going to come from making that garden improvement or overcoming that obstacle or challenge in the garden. So gardens that have a nice clear description of kind of all those topics are definitely um, you know good examples of successful applications. So one question here in the chat, where is your funding coming from since 2015 and the increase last year, 2022 to 2023? So FoodWell Alliance was initially seed funded from local foundation, the James M. Cox Foundation. So the Cox Foundation has been a primary funder of FoodWell Alliance annually since 2015. But we have additionally diversified funding from other local foundations and other funding sources, also kind of farther afield, not necessarily located here directly in Metro Atlanta. We've also increased over the years our individual contributions and funding, and diversified with some other government sources, including USDA, as well as some other like smaller family foundations and other organizations, both located here in Atlanta, and other places. So the question, I think, around increase last year, 2022 to 2023. So increasing in the sense of being able to offer this larger $10,000 opportunity, that was more or less done from kind of some, our own internal budgeting process to make sure that we were able to prioritize budget to fund, for example, two of the larger Garden Forward grant opportunities. And then a question here, any habitual challenges with funded projects in the past the Food Well Alliance would like forthcoming fund recipients to consider? Great question. Thank you, Tanisha, for that. Yeah, I think, the community garden grant amount, especially with our smaller $1,500 garden improvement grant, that amount we've generally seen as a good, a good amount as far as being user-friendly and easy to manage and implement in the community garden setting. And so, there have not been a lot of challenges with past recipients being able to, for example, once awarded the grant, not a lot of challenges to kind of, implementing and utilizing the grant. I think, there's definitely that kind of being realistic on the front end, doing a little bit of the work on the front end to understand, within a project budget, what is, what's realistic. That means taking some time here in the application window to go ahead and make sure you're doing some, checking out some pricing, checking out, what you would be able to implement with that $1,500, or the $10,000 Garden Forward grant. That just makes folks then be able to kind of do a little bit better job or understanding and being realistic about kind of what they're able to accomplish through the grant. As far as additional project management reporting, the garden grant has not had a lot of challenges or issues kind of in those categories. The project size is something that folks are able to kind of document along the way and make notes as far as like either challenges or changes that they've encountered with implementing. So it haven't been a lot of challenges, but I think just a little bit of that work on the front end to say, hey, make sure as a community garden, we are ready to take this on, understanding that there is a little bit of project management, a manageable level that is required, and then understanding that once you do receive the funds and do your project, that there is a project report later in the year to reflect on the project and reflect on it. I think just kind of having all of those things in mind up front are things that the community garden applicants can understand and kind of make sure that they're prepared kind of going into. But no other kind of real challenges with the actual funded projects. I think certainly in any community garden, there are challenges around, just things like maintaining membership, continuing to support spaces with the physical work that's required throughout the year. So it's kind of incorporating and understanding how a garden is able to just successfully maintain and keep their garden up. That kind of ties in and goes along with recipients of the garden grant itself. Excellent, y'all. So we're a little bit past 11, so I do want to just be respectful of time. As I mentioned, the session has been recorded, and we are going to be posting this in a few different places on our website and sharing out via social media so that if you need to revisit any of part of the webinar today, or if you want to share it with anybody, a garden member or another community garden leader that you know of that might want to review or see the material here that we've covered, you can definitely be sharing that out. Once again, reach out to me if you have any questions at any point related to the community garden grant, the application process, any challenges at all with any of the technology related to the application process, or any of those kind of questions. We're excited at Foodwell Alliance. We always enjoy this time of the year, as it's an opportunity to kind of check in with gardens, hear what needs and what people are working on, to hear about the creative ways that folks are addressing challenges and needs. So we're always excited about this time of the year, as folks are hopefully still in the gardens, still enjoying some of the cool season vegetables and gardening activities that happen this time of year, but hopefully are also doing a little bit of planning in addition to some of that planting. So we're always excited by this opportunity to get to hear what folks are working on in their community gardens. So once again, thank you all so much for attending. And I look forward to hearing from you all, either through the community garden grant process, or potentially in the future through some of the other ongoing resources that we do provide in support of community gardens. So thanks again, once again. Have a great rest of your day. Stay warm on this chilly day. Make sure your plants and gardens get plenty of water to make it through another cold night tonight, and happy fall gardening as well.